Hey everybody, welcome to Venice Beach. I'm Yogi Roth, and this is the Power of Positivity Summit. Those are my surfboards. That's a football. Some of my favorite things. Don't worry, I'll change the lighting so we can see one another, but I wanted to show you some things that truly get me excited and make me stoked. Now, I've lived a life that's always been full of positivity, and I didn't really have a choice. The way that I was raised, I was very fortunate. Our mom was a refugee from Israel. She came over, both of her parents being Holocaust survivors, and she always reinforced how fortunate we were to be in this country, how fortunate we were to have opportunities in front of us. I can remember so much so I'd come home with a poor grade on an exam, and she would say, Yogi, it's not about getting straight A's. It's about you live in the land of opportunity. You see, she didn't have that. Both of her parents were both Holocaust survivors, and I would ask them and hear their stories so often across the dinner table, just like this. I can remember being 8 years old and just sitting at the table, had my little cup of ginger ale next to me, and I'd talk to my grandfather, and I'd ask him about the 8 machine gun holes he has in his upper left shoulder, and how that happened. And the way that it happens when he escaped a concentration camp, played dead for 2 days, and a gypsy got him back to health. I can remember asking my grandmother about her life and hiding out in farmhouse after farmhouse after her family was absolutely murdered as they were axed to death when she was walking home from school. And she'd say, Yogi, love wins. I'm not here to hold a grudge. I'm here to look for the next opportunity and make sure that you live your life like that. So for me, that has always been a way that I've lived, a way that I've operated. So much so that up on my wall is a sign from my mom, and you've probably heard it before, right? Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, and all the places you can, all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. And that's just a way that I've always observed life, because we do have these incredible, amazing opportunities. So much so that about 10 years ago, I went to Israel and I said, I need to check out this homeland. I want to see what it's all about. And while I was there, my final week, there was crisis that kind of erupted. And there was 2 Israeli soldiers. And if you know anything about that community, everybody goes to serve in the military. And there was going to be a soldier exchange. The 2 Israeli soldiers, who the community did not know if they were alive or if they had passed away, and a soldier from Palestine. And they make the exchange, soldiers for soldiers. And what happens is the Israeli soldiers come back, and unfortunately they're in a box, and they had passed away. And the Palestinian man had not come back, passed away, he was alive. And immediately, ridiculous discourse happened in both the West Bank as well as Jerusalem. And I went to go visit both communities. And I saw heartbreak in one, and I saw jubilation in the other. And as I went across the border into the West Bank, sorry, Mom, I know you don't enjoy this story, but I went across, I wanted to explore if hate was taught and learned. I firmly and fundamentally believe that we do not grow up hating people. We do not grow up hating the Yankees, hating the Red Sox, hating USC, hating UCLA. It is taught and learned. We do not grow up hating Palestinians, hating Arabs, hating Jews. I believe that is something that is taught and learned. My point being that positivity is something innate in us. If you've ever been around a child, if you've ever been around a baby, you would totally understand and probably agree with that. And as I went from village to village, I started to interview different people. And I started to ask them their beliefs on a variety of different religions, on races, on ethnicities. And I found that that fundamental truth of things are taught and learned was widespread in the West Bank, was widespread in the old city of Jerusalem, and I believe is widespread all across the world. I truly believe that we all hope something good is about to happen next. I truly believe that any negativity is something that is taught and learned, and I truly believe that humanity, ultimately, we want to help one another. As I got older, I moved to Southern California, and I was very fortunate to work at the University of Southern California at SC. And I got to coach football under a guy named Pete Carroll. Quite possibly the most positive individual I've ever met in my entire life. And if you tune on a game and watch the Seahawks, you would probably agree. He's running and jumping with jubilation. He's chewing gum and throwing, and he's having fun, high-fiving and hugging players. But as I got to know Pete and had the opportunity to write his book, I learned this man, not only does he expect something good to happen next, but he has this ridiculous amount of depth to why he assumes something good is about to happen next. And it's because he goes back and learns his story. And as I talk to you today, my nudge, my subtle nudge will hopefully be for you to go back and learn your story. Learn when you had good times, when you had bad times, when you struggled, when you had pure enjoyment, when you had elation, when you were in a state of flow, and pull out the characteristics, the good, the bad, and different, and find out what touch point those had in your life. For me, I can remember the first negative one. I was in 4th grade, and it was a basketball coach. He said, "Hey, everybody, Yogi is going to get his MBA." I said, No, coach, it's the NBA." And he kept laughing, and everybody started to laugh. He said, "Hey, everybody, Yogi's going to get his MBA." He said, No, coach, it's the NBA, I say. And at the time, I didn't realize what an MBA was. I didn't know that they were just being playful, but it was the first time anyone ever shot down a dream of mine. Point being, I took that lesson, that principle of a negative time in my life, and filed it away and said, okay, cool. No one is going to ever have the opportunity to take down one of my dreams. Okay, cool. So then I go to the positive side of it. When I had an opportunity to walk on at the University of Pittsburgh, I had the opportunity to play, the opportunity to prove, and when I did, I capitalized on it. Those feelings, those thoughts, that grit, that work ethic, to me are things that I lean on constantly. So I pull from a negative and from a positive, and I say, okay, what do I love from that? What will motivate me? What will allow me to continue to look at life through a positive lens? Years ago, I was working for a prominent network in television, and one of the executives pulled me aside and he said, "Yogi, you say the word awesome a little too often. Everything can't be awesome." And I said, "Well, actually, sir, when I say it, I mean it, and it actually can be." And what I learned from that experience is that a skill set that we all should try to adapt is the ability to process and process fast. When something negative happens in the world, something negative happens to me, when frustration enters my life, I don't try to harbor it. I look at the power of positivity like all of you are this week, and I say, okay, what is the issue? What is bothering me? Right? If I was in 4th grade and I could do this, I would say, what is bothering me is my basketball coach is taking away a dream of mine. I didn't know that at the time. Now, if I go into one of those environments, someone is trying to take away or create a negative environment, I say, what about this is truly bothering me? And I try to process it almost in real time. So then I could look at the positive sides of that. Of, you know what, maybe he's motivating me to get an MBA. Again, if I was 10 years old again and I could go back, that's maybe how I would think of it. But my point is that I would go through this process individually. Anytime negativity occurs in my life, frustration enters my heart, anything that I'm dealing with, and I try to process it as quickly as humanly possible. An element of my life is that I get to be a coach with the Elite 11. The Elite 11 is basically American Idol for high school quarterbacks. We go all across the country. When I left coaching at USC, I wanted to stay involved in the game. Not only as a broadcaster, as an analyst on television, but really connected to the athletes. And we go from region to region to region. And we take the top quarterbacks out of about 800, bring the top to the finals. And we evaluate 20, 30 quarterbacks, and we say, all right, who are the Elite 11? The top 11 quarterbacks in the nation, ultimately the MVP. And what we talk about within our staff is the power of our language, the power of our self-talk. And we ask the quarterbacks, what is your self-talk? When you throw an interception, when bad things happen, when you hear negativity, what are you saying to yourself? What is going on in your mind? And if you think about it, as a habitual human being, we continue to say those things to ourselves, and all of a sudden it becomes habit. Every time I make a bad play, it's, man, I can't play. Man, I suck. I don't have the arm. Well, we're not going to make every play in our entire life. So if you think about the bad plays that happen, all of a sudden, say 10 bad plays happen per practice, you're saying that 10 times to yourself. Over 5 practices in a week, that's 50 times that ultimately you're taking shots at yourself, at your soul, at your heart, at your work ethic, at your belief and your confidence in who you are. So we try to expose the student athletes to the power of self-talk. We try to expose student athletes to the power of really listening to what they're saying. We also empower ourselves as coaches to say, what are we saying? So much so that now, heading into my 8th year, this is heading into his 18th year of the Elite 11 this summer, we've got coaches policing one another. Hey man, what you said right there, that's a little negative. What you said right there isn't advancing the coaches. And it's so few and far between now, but I love the environment that's been created by the staff at Student Sports, Andy Bark, Trent Dilfer, Matt James, all the people that were around. And now it's created an environment where the student athletes can thrive, but also the teachers can thrive. And our job as those teachers are to learn our learners. How do they think? How do they process? Well, we can never do that if we don't understand how we think and how we process. I do the same thing as a broadcaster. Prior to every single game that I call, I remind myself 2 simple things. Yogi, your job is to celebrate the game and coach the viewer. Simply that is my job. And as games go on, as many of you know when you watch sporting events, negative plays happen. Everybody doesn't always thrive. Well, that's okay. But as an analyst, I look at the fact first and then give my opinion second. So-and-so didn't make a play. But my opinion is because maybe there was someone on the other side of the ball that did make a play. So everything in my life continues to go through this lens of something good is about to happen. Something good is happening. Let me try to see that element. And I've been criticized for it before, but I'm okay with that. That is a way that I want to choose to live my life. I want to see the positive. I have no problem stating the facts if they're negative, but I'm going to pull out the good stuff. Because why not? I think that it feeds the viewer. I think it feeds the people involved, and ultimately it feeds me to live a life that is full of positivity. The final story I have for you today was one that touched my heart on ridiculous levels. Years ago, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and many of you men or women have been around someone who's gone through that. Maybe some of you have gone through it yourself. And I didn't deal with it well at all. I was this alpha male charging and racing in the world. I didn't stop and pause and gain any perspective on what was really happening. I was just racing through the coaching community, racing through the entertainment community, from audition to audition, not calling my family back. And all of a sudden, yeah, I was still positive, but I wasn't filling my heart with the stuff that we need to fill it with that keeps this positive engine moving. So I flew home, and I asked my dad to go for a walk. And he said, sure, where do you want to go? Thinking we'd go maybe around the block. And I gave him a plane ticket. And I said, let's go to Spain and Portugal and walk the Camino de Santiago. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's probably the most famous walk in the world. And as we went on that walk, I asked him so many questions, every question I could dream of. Question that my brother may have had for him, question that my sister may have had for them, but really the questions that I needed to get answered from my dad. And as we went for this walk over 2 weeks, it was magical. We didn't have one argument. He told me things that I never would have even thought of. I got to know a man that ultimately I didn't know. And for a lot of parents out there, your job is to raise a child, protect your child, serve a child, but maybe not always tell the child your story. But being a son, as I learned those stories from my dad, not only did I learn where my positive outcome came from, not just from my mom, but also from my dad's optimistic outlook on life, but I also was given these nuggets, these big time pieces of information that I got to store in my heart, in my soul, that I'll be able to tap into for years to come about why we want to live a life of positivity, why we want to continue to introduce ourselves, why we want to get uncomfortable daily, and why we want to continue to grow and explore. And because of that walk, and because of our subsequent film around that walk, Life in a Walk, I've been able to watch the people who truly influence me continue to influence me. And if I could take a couple of those nuggets and share them, then I'm living a life full of positivity. So ultimately, as I know you've got a variety of other speakers to get to, what I hope you take away from this conversation is that positivity is a choice. If you want to think things are awesome, it's a choice. Find the depth to those choices. Go back and dive into your story, the good times and the bad times, the mentors, the friends, the people that broke your heart, the people that lifted and filled your heart, and find out traits that make you thrive, that make you come alive, because when that happens, they're always going to be there for you to tap into. And ultimately, if you continue to tap into those, they become part of your daily vernacular. They become what I like to call your new normal. They become your daily life, your daily ethos. And ultimately, they become where you find the purest joy and simple joys. Once again, thank you for listening. It's been an honor to be a part of this. And I'm going to go hang out with some of my simple joys here the rest of the day. I'm Yogi Roth. Stay in touch. Hope to connect with you on social media, or shoot me an email, yogi@yogiroth.com. And looking forward to connecting with you and hearing about your positive story. Peace.